Hi, welcome back to Christine's Home Affairs. Today I'm going to show you how to make a very simple boxed pouch, I guess, or a boxed box. Not really sure what we're going to call it, but it's going to be multifunctional or multi-use. Not sure about that either. Brain fog. The idea I've got today is that we're going to use one type of pattern and we're going to make a couple of different projects. So this is the biggest one that we're doing. It's just a storage box and you can use this to put your fabric in there, your rubbish, whatever it is you want to. And we've got a couple of handles on there. We're not going to be wasting any fabric from this, so we're going to make sure we use the box corners. So that's one of them. I'm also going to be using a couple of different stabilizers so you can see the different outcomes with those. And we're going to be making this in smaller sizes as well. Same pattern, just different dimensions, and the process for making it is exactly the same, but we're going to have three completely different outcomes. Stick around and we'll work on this together. I'm going to be making three of these today in different sizes using a couple of different stabilizers, and I'm really just using the scrap pieces that I had in my drawers. This one here was just a long rectangle. I've cut out the boxing. And what I'm using here is Decaville. I've fused that to the fabric I'm going to be using for the outside, and I've made sure that the fabric is at least 2 centimetres bigger all the way around. Now you don't need to quilt Decaville, but I will be putting some quilting lines on this. The next one I'm going to be making with a stiff wadding. It's like Peltex. This one here is an Australian product, but it's the same thickness as Peltex, except that this isn't fusible, so I do need to quilt this. And this is the one that we're going to be working with today. So I've just shown you the other two so that you can see how easy it is to use whatever scraps you've got and whatever size fabric pieces you've got as well. So for today's project, I'm going to be using this big piece of stabilizer. It's a nice stiff one. Again, it's the same type as Peltex, but it's non-fusible, simply because I couldn't get a hold of any fusible. So I'm happy to use this one. If you have basting spray, you can always spray that in between the layers of your fabric. All we need to create this project is a lining fabric, an outer fabric, and a stabilizer. You can use your soft fleecy as well if you want to. From the box corners, we're going to create a couple of handles, which will be 18 by 9 centimetres or 7 by 3.5 inches. We're going to take the sizing for our project from our stabilizer. So we'll cut our stabilizer out at 48 by 43 centimetres or 19 by 17 inches. Once you've cut that out, you want to make sure you've got 2 pieces of fabric, one for the lining and one for the outer. You want those fabric pieces to be at least 1 inch wider all the way around, which is about 2.5 centimetres. So make sure that your fabric extends beyond your Peltex or your stabilizer, because we are going to quilt this. It'll skew the fabric a little bit, and then we need to add our seam allowance as well. We'll set our fabric aside for the moment. We've got the shortest width across here, and this is the longest, and fold that in half. So across here I've got 43 centimetres or 17 inches, and we'll just make a mark in the centre of the fabric at the bottom there. Do that at both sides and open that out. From that centre marking here, I'm going to measure up 9 centimetres or 3.5 inches, and I'm also going to come in 9 centimetres or 3.5 inches. So I'll find the 3.5 inch line on my ruler, that's my centre line there. From the centre I've measured out 3.5 inches, and from the side edge I've measured in 3.5 inches or 9 centimetres, and I'll do the same on the other side of the centre. And this is what we need to cut out for our box corner. And that will make our little basket sit about this high. Repeat that for the other one. So if you work with centimetres, then you just take your 9 centimetre mark, line that up on the edge of your stabiliser, and then you'll measure 9 centimetres on either side again. Whether you're working in centimetres or inches, this is what you're going to be cutting out on the side of your stabiliser. I'm just going to fold mine in half so that I have the markings on both sides, and I'll cut that out in one go. Now we have everything ready to start quilting. I don't throw these box corners out, they come in really handy. Likewise with these little ones, if you're putting metal labels or magnetic snaps on your products, these are really good stabilisers for the back of your fabric. So I do keep all of these, and what I will do now is place my fabric piece with the printed side faced down, and I place my stabiliser over the top. Before I secure this with pins, I just want to mark some quilting lines. So you want to decide whether you want to have diagonal lines, straight lines, or cross hatching. I think I'm going to keep it simple and go from one corner to the other, and then mark some lines in a few inch increments on either side. I'll go to the machine now and quilt all of these. All we want are the outer fabric and the stabiliser pieces. I might use a 5mm stitch length today because I want my sewing to go quickly. Having a longer stitch length will help reduce some of the gathering or puckering that you might get underneath, and it also makes the job go a lot quicker. I'm just using regular Gutermann sewing thread, and the needle size I'm using is a 90 or 14. I'm not able to put a walking foot on this machine, so if you have a sewing machine and you have a walking foot, that'll be the best thing for you when you're quilting. Because I don't have the ability to do that, I've actually put my Teflon or my vinyl foot on because that'll help glide through the fabric more easily. I'm not sure if it makes a difference, but I'm going to convince myself that it does. Okay, the quilting's been done on all of the pieces, just diagonal lines going across on this one, and we can take our lining fabric, we'll place that right side up, so if this had a print on it you would have the print faced up, and we'll have this print faced down directly over the top. Line up your fabric evenly underneath so that we have enough of the lining sticking out from the edge of your stabiliser, and we're going to trim this back. The seam allowance that we're going to have today is 1 centimetre or 3/8 of an inch. So what you can do is take your measuring gauge and measure 1 centimetre all the way around the entire piece. And we're going to take the measurement from the edge of the stabiliser. You can also use your quilting ruler, line up your 1 centimetre or 3/8 inch mark on the very edge of your stabiliser, and cut that out in one go. everything's been cut out with our 1 centimetre seam allowance all the way around. I've been careful not to cut into the corners here. We're not going to throw away these 2 pieces. We're going to turn these into handles. What I'm going to do is just place the 2 pieces together, the lining and the outer, sew that down the short edge, and I'll do the same for this one as well. I'll take that to the machine and quickly do that now. Okay, the lining and the outer fabric have been sewn together along here, and I've just finger pressed the seams open. I'll fold that in half, and then I'll fold the raw edges into the centre. And then I'll fold that back in again. Now it's up to you if you want to stabilise this. I don't really think it needs it. It's not going to be carrying any weight. It'll really just be sitting on a counter. So I'll do the same thing for this one, fold that in twice, and then we'll go to the machine and sew down both long edges. Once the handles are done, we need to place them down on our fabric. We can fold this in half, find the centre. So my centre's marked here. I'll transfer that marking to the other end as well. And we need to place our handles on either side of that centre marking. It's up to you where you'd like to have them. If you want to have a really nice long handle, have the ends closer together. If you want them a little bit shorter, you can have them further apart. You don't want to have them further apart than your stitching line on the edge here. I'm going to place my handles about 3 inches or 8 centimetres from the centre. Have a look at that and see if I like that. And I think I can live with that. So from the other end I'll do exactly the same thing. Then you want to decide whether you want the colour of your handles to be the same on the front and back of your bag. I do, so I'm going to place the black to my left and the coloured strap to my right. So there's our handle in place. I'll quickly go and sew that in place now. Okay, the handles are in place. Bring the right sides together and we're going to sew up the side seam. So line up your edges so that your corners are even at the bottom, and we'll sew the side seams up on all 3 of my little boxes. So I'm just sewing right along the very edge of the stabiliser. And we'll do the same for the other end. And we'll do the same for the lining. Okay, the side seams are done. Now we can do the boxed corners. And where that corner comes to a point, you'll just open that out right on the corner, and your boxing should sit nice and flat. The side seam I'm going to push to one side. So for this one, I'll push it to the left. For both of my pieces, I'll do this on my lining and on the outer piece of fabric. Come around to the other side. And I'll press that to my left as well. not for any particular reason other than it helps me to remember which way I've sent everything. So this seam goes to my left and this one here as well. For my lining, I'll do exactly the same. Open it out, find that point. There's my seam, and I'll push that seam over to my left. And same for the other side. So now what I'll do is sew along here and along the edge of the stabiliser here as well. So all of those will have that 1 centimetre seam allowance. I'll start off with the lining. I'll backstitch at the beginning and the end, and I usually like to treble stitch over the seam as well. Okay, so we've done the box corners. When I sew the inner and outer together, it's easier for me to sew with the stabilised fabric faced to the top, and this is how I usually sew. So what I'm going to do is place my lining inside out, so the seams are on the outside. I'm going to place the outer bag inside there. Make sure you pop your handles to the inside, line up the side seam. Across here I've got the lining coming toward me, and in here I've got the seam away from me. And I'll follow the same line on the other end, and then I can line up these edges. Ready now to take this to the machine. We're going to sew from here all the way around to the other side and leave an opening here. Now this distance here is the gap that I have between my handles. I've got one handle right here and one right here. I'm going to backstitch at the beginning and the end, and then I'll use this side to turn the bag the right way around when I'm done. So we'll go and sew all the way around. I'll start at the side seam. If you've increased your stitch length when you were quilting, for your side seams, your boxing of your corners and everything else, you'll actually want to have a regular stitch length. Mine's at about 2.8. So I'm at the handle here. I'll backstitch and I'll leave that opening and come back to the other handle, and I'll backstitch here as well and finish up on that side seam. I don't really know why I started on the side seam. I usually start where my openings are going to be. But then I don't usually leave an opening at the top either. Okay, with that done, we need to find the opening, which is just here. The two handles, one finishes here and the other one finishes along there. And having the stiff stabiliser here is going to make it easier for my edges to fold under when I turn this the right way around. So we'll bring that through. This is much easier to turn through with the bigger box than it is for the smaller ones that I'm making. Poke out your corners, make sure they're sitting nicely, and then we need to tidy up the lining and the outer edge so that we have the lining on one side and the outer on the other side. Clip the edges together, and then we're going to go and top stitch. Once again, I'm going to turn this inside out because when I top stitch, the fabric is going to sit on the machine like this, and I'll top stitch from the top. I like to see what's happening at the top of my work. That's what we usually see when the project's finished. So I will line everything up nice and evenly so that I have the lining on one side, the outer fabric on the other, and then I can top stitch. Now the opening is along here, right in between the handle, which you can see just here. And all I've done is folded the outer fabric over the stabilizer, and the lining fabric has been folded in evenly as well. Now clip all of those edges together, and we can now go and top stitch all the way around, and once we've done that we're finished. I'm going to start near the handle here. This is where the opening starts. That way I can close up that opening first and the rest will be easy. And we're back to where we started. Okay, here I have 3 little bags made from the same basic pattern, and the construction so far has been exactly the same for all 3 of them, except for the fact that this one I've only put one handle on. I can hang this over the side of my sewing machine, and as I'm using my clips I can just drop them into the little bucket. So that's something that's handy. I can hang that underneath, I can hang that in front of my machine or to the side. Whereas this one here is a cute little bag, perfect to give as a gift of fat quarters perhaps. But what I'm going to do is bring the sides in, and I'm going to get some little plastic snaps. Just put some snaps on the 2 sides and make that a little handbag. So we'll do that in a moment. This one here is the one that's the nice big boxed box, I guess. Now I don't like how the edges are curved. What I'm going to do, where these corners are here, I'll just stick my finger in at the bottom edge here, find that point and fold that up along the edge here. And I'm going to pop a couple of clips in, and I'm going to go and top stitch just under 1/4 of an inch along the edge here. That's going to make me have nice rigid sides and it'll sit more squarely. I'll do the same at this corner here. I'll stick my finger down in the corner and I'll just press that together. And I want to sew the lining and the outer together at this point. And you can also take your seam gauge and just measure the distance from the centre seam out to the side. So that's about 3.5 inches or 9 centimetres. Make sure that's even. And we'll do the same on the other end. So just tuck the lining in nice and firmly. Find that corner. Measure that 3.5 inches or 9 centimetres. And the very last thing I'm going to do with this one here is sew up these corners. I've got the bottom end here. I'm just going to squash that down. I'll start sewing at that seam at the bottom edge. And backstitch at the top. And we'll do that for all 4 corners. So there we have it. The corners are boxed. It's sitting much better now that the corners have been sewn up on the sides. This bag can also be modified as well if you wanted to. You don't have to have it as a boxy bag for your counter or your table. You can take it a little bit further. You can put a couple of little press studs on the top here and turn that into almost a little barrel bag. Something else you can do with it anyway. I do like the use of the 2-tone handle, so it's a great way to use up the scrap fabric that you have from the box corners. Let's take this little one here. I've done the same thing. I've measured out the same distance from the center seam here, and I've just folded the edges along. And what I'm going to do at the top, evenly on either side of this center seam, is just poke a little hole through all the layers, and I'll do the same right next to it on this side. And I'll pop one of the caps to the inside of the bag. And I'll put the opposite one on the same side. And repeat for the other end. Okay, once you've done that, you can press these together and you've got a very cute little handbag. Perfect for a child. So there we have it. One pattern, 3 different bag styles, all very easy to make. Okay, I promised you 3 different outcomes, didn't I? So we've got our large boxed bag here. You can use this as a storage pouch for your fabric pieces in your sewing room somewhere. Make a great gift bag. If you had somebody that was having a baby and you wanted to give them some nursery items, you can make them a little basket like this and pop a whole heap of baby products in there. I think that would make a great gift. This one here is just a really cute little bag with the addition of some plastic snaps on the side that turns it into a bag. And you can easily do that with the bigger one as well. Pop your snaps on the side and close it up. Or, as I said earlier, you can pop a couple of snaps on the top edges there and close it up like this to make a little bag or a big bag. And lastly, the other one that we've made only has the one handle on there instead of 2. You could hang it over the top of your sewing machine and drop your clips or scraps in there. The other thing that you can do though is use this in the car. It was requested a long time ago if I could make a pouch that we could use to put our drink bottles in the car, and this idea came up completely by accident. So here's my pump bottle, there's my little pouch. I can hang this in the car now, don't really know where. I don't think it's legal to hang it from the mirror, but I can hang it from somewhere. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Three perfectly useful or completely useless products that you can make from one really simple pattern. These little ones here, all I did was use a 1-inch boxed corner on the sides. So I just measured the 2.5 centimeters or 1 inch, whereas this one here I did 3.5 inches or 9 centimeters. Completely up to you what size you want to make your little bags or boxed corners for that matter. I do get asked all the time if I'm going to sell what I present to you in these videos. I can't really be bothered, and I think the only people that will want to use something like this are people that already sew and they will make their own, and if they don't, then I'll tell them to follow my channel. I won't actually be making these for the shop, but I'll probably put a price tag on them in the shop, maybe $25, see how it goes. If it doesn't sell, I'll put the price down, and these ones might be $15 each. I'll see how I go with those anyway. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I shall catch you next time. Bye for now.